Your greatest spiritual breakthrough isn't waiting for you in comfort. It's forged in the fire of what you're actively avoiding. Today, we're going to unlock the divine blueprint for an unstoppable faith, one that thrives not despite the struggle, but precisely because of it. We all crave purpose, a deep spiritual anchor that holds firm when the storms rage. Yet, too often, we find ourselves adrift, waiting for a surge of motivation, a clear sign, or a comfortable path to emerge. We tell ourselves we'll start tomorrow, when we feel better, when the circumstances are just right. This waiting, this subtle surrender to convenience, is the silent thief of our God-given potential. It's a spiritual paralysis, a quiet resignation that keeps us from becoming the resilient, faith-filled individuals we are called to be. But what if the very discomfort you're running from is the divine trainer sent to sculpt your soul? What if your greatest strength lies hidden just beyond the threshold of your current pain? The truth is, extraordinary faith isn't born in ease. It's forged in the furnace of daily deliberate choices, especially those that feel hard, those that stretch us, those that demand more than we think we have. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent, about showing up for your spiritual life even when every fiber of your being screams to quit. It means embracing the grit, the grind, the moments where your faith feels tested to its very core. Because it's in these moments when we lean into the discomfort rather than away from it, that we begin to discover an unwavering power within us, a power that is truly unstoppable. We often diagnose our spiritual stagnation as a lack of discipline, or perhaps a deficiency in prayer. But the root often runs deeper. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how true spiritual strength is built. We've been conditioned to seek comfort, to avoid pain, to chase immediate gratification, and this mindset has subtly crept into our spiritual lives. We wait for inspiration to strike before we open our Bibles, for a wave of peace before we kneel in prayer, for a feeling of overflowing love before we serve. But genuine transformation rarely begins with a surge of emotion. It begins with an act of will. It starts when you decide to take ownership of your spiritual journey, understanding that no one else can walk this path for you. No one else can do the work. It's about becoming the architect of your soul, meticulously drawing the blueprints for the life God intends for you, then laying each brick with intention, even when your hands ache and the progress feels slow. The first clue to breaking free is recognizing that your feelings are fickle guides. They ebb and flow like the tides. If you wait for the tide to be perfect, you'll never set sail. The secret is to act, not just when you feel motivated, but especially when you don't. This isn't about ignoring your emotions. It's about choosing to lead them rather than being led by them. It's an active, daily choice to show up for God, to show up for yourself, to build the spiritual muscle that will carry you through any trial. If this message resonates with you, if you're ready to stop waiting and start building, then join this community of spiritual builders by connecting with us. Leave a comment below sharing one area where you're ready to embrace discomfort for growth, and let's inspire each other on this journey. One of the most insidious obstacles on this path is the seductive pull of comfort. We are hardwired to seek ease, to conserve energy, to avoid anything that feels like a struggle. I remember Mark, a brilliant architect in his late 40s, who after a series of professional setbacks and personal losses, found himself spiritually adrift. He used to be a man of meticulous plans, building soaring structures, but his own life felt like a condemned building. He'd sit in his quiet apartment, waiting for a profound spiritual awakening, a sudden surge of faith, or some undeniable sign from God that would pull him out of his apathy. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and he remained paralyzed, convinced he couldn't move forward until he felt it. He waited for the emotional spark, the deep yearning for prayer, the overwhelming desire to open his Bible, but it never came. His faith became a stagnant pond, reflecting only his inaction. The principle of overcoming this obstacle is deceptively simple. Consistent, deliberate action. irrespective of emotion. Mark's breakthrough came when he stopped waiting for the feeling and started acting. He began with what felt like a truly uncomfortable, almost pointless discipline. Waking up 15 minutes earlier each day to simply sit in silence, not necessarily praying or reading, but just being present, even when all he felt was exhaustion and a profound emptiness. He committed to this small, uncomfortable act. It wasn't glorious, it wasn't inspiring, but it was consistent. And that consistency, that deliberate push against his desire for comfort, slowly began to chip away at the spiritual concrete that had encased his heart. This leads us to the second major obstacle, the insidious power of excuses and the subtle craving for external validation. When we don't feel like doing something, our minds are masters at crafting elaborate justifications for inaction. I'm too tired. I don't have enough time. It's not the right season. God isn't speaking to me right now. These aren't just thoughts. They are chains, binding us to mediocrity. And often, intertwined with these excuses, is the desire for someone else to notice our efforts, to applaud our progress, to validate our spiritual journey. We want the applause, the affirmation, the external confirmation that we're doing it right. But here's a surprising revelation. True spiritual strength is an internal engine, not an external fuel pump. It doesn't rely on applause or even on feeling good. It relies on a deep, unshakable commitment to God and to the person He is calling you to be. The Apostle Paul understood this profoundly when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness." This isn't just a comforting verse. It's a profound truth about spiritual power. It means that God's strength isn't just present despite our weaknesses. It's actually perfected in them. When we stop relying on our own strength, our own feelings, our own excuses, and instead lean into Him, especially in our moments of discomfort and vulnerability, that's when His power truly shines through us. The practical application is to identify your most common excuses and silence them. When the voice in your head whispers, "I can't," or "I don't feel like it," respond with a simple, deliberate act of faith. Choose to do the very thing your mind is screaming to avoid. This isn't about self-punishment. It's about spiritual liberation. This brings us to a pivotal spiritual turning point, a profound shift in perspective that redefines our relationship with discomfort and pain. We've been taught to avoid pain, to numb it, to escape it. But what if pain, especially the pain of spiritual stretching, is not an enemy, but a divine trainer? What if the very discomfort we recoil from is the catalyst for our deepest growth? Consider the words of Romans 5:3-4, a truth often overlooked in our pursuit of ease. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. This isn't a call to seek suffering for suffering's sake, but to embrace the reality that when we face challenges, when we lean into the spiritual workout, something profound happens within us. It's the spiritual equivalent of a muscle growing stronger after being pushed to its limits. Our inner transformation begins when we stop seeing discomfort as a barrier and start seeing it as fuel. It's the grit in the oyster that creates the pearl. It's the pressure that forms the diamond. And in our spiritual lives, it's the willingness to endure, to push through the moments of doubt, the periods of dryness, the seasons of apparent silence, that builds an unwavering character rooted in hope. This hope is not a wishful thought. It's a confident expectation, born from the understanding that God is actively working through our struggles, molding us, shaping us, perfecting us. This is the moment we stop running from the pain and begin to walk through it, allowing it to become the very thing that propels us forward into a deeper, more resilient faith. This new perspective transforms everything. When we understand discomfort as a spiritual discipline, we stop viewing it as a chore and begin to see it as a privilege, an opportunity for divine sculpting. Mark, our architect, fully embraced this. After months of his quiet, consistent spiritual discipline, he didn't suddenly feel a rush of euphoria or a dramatic vision. Instead, he noticed something far more powerful, a quiet, inner strength he hadn't known was possible. He started applying this principle to other areas of his life. He began volunteering at a local community center, taking on tasks that were far outside his comfort zone, like organizing chaotic inventories and mediating disputes. He started exercising daily, even when his body protested, understanding that the physical discomfort was building discipline for his mind and spirit. He even took the uncomfortable step of reaching out to old colleagues, not for a job, but to offer his mentorship, pouring into others when he felt he had little left to give. And it was in these seemingly small, uncomfortable acts that his life began to turn around. He found himself not just surviving, but thriving. His architectural skills, once paralyzed by fear, found new expression in pro bono work for nonprofits, leading to unexpected opportunities. His relationships, once strained, began to mend. The spiritual roots he had cultivated in the quiet, uncomfortable moments allowed him to withstand the storms of life, much like a mighty oak tree, whose roots grow strongest when they push through rocky soil, seeking water in difficult places. This isn't just about personal spiritual growth, it's about expansive application. This principle applies to every area of your life, your finances, your relationships, your health. Are you avoiding difficult conversations? Are you putting off uncomfortable financial decisions? Are you neglecting your physical well-being because it feels too hard? Embrace the discomfort. It is the raw material for your greatest breakthroughs. So how do we practically apply this truth to build an unstoppable faith? It begins with intentionality. First, identify one small, uncomfortable spiritual discipline you can commit to daily for the next 30 days. Maybe it's waking up 15 minutes earlier to pray in silence, or choosing to read a chapter of scripture when you'd rather scroll through social media, or initiating a difficult but necessary conversation with a loved one. Make it specific, make it measurable, and most importantly, make it uncomfortable. Second, track your progress. This isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. A simple journal or a note on your phone can serve as your accountability partner. Seeing your streak, even through days of struggle, reinforces the habit and builds momentum. Third, pray a prayer of ownership. Don't ask God to make it easy. Ask Him to give you the strength to embrace the discomfort. Ask Him to show you where your excuses are holding you back. Ask Him to transform your pain into purpose. Imagine a renewed vision for your life. Not one free of challenges, but one where you face every challenge with an unshakable faith, knowing that God is not just with you, but actively working through the struggle to refine you. Imagine the peace that comes from knowing you are actively building your spiritual foundation, brick by painstaking brick, and that each uncomfortable moment is a step closer to the person God created you to be. This is your invitation to change, to step out of the spiritual stagnation and into a life of vibrant, active faith. We've journeyed from the paralysis of waiting for comfort to the profound power of embracing discomfort, from fearing challenges to understanding them as divine trainers. We've seen that true strength isn't found in avoiding the hard work, but in intentionally leaning into it, trusting that God's power is perfected in our weakness. You are the architect of your soul, called to build a life of purpose and profound faith, not on fleeting emotions or external validation, but on the solid foundation of consistent, deliberate action. The path to an unstoppable faith isn't a smooth, paved road. It's a rugged trail, winding through valleys and over peaks, but it's on this trail that you will discover the depths of your resilience and the boundless grace of God. Your future is not predetermined by your past failures or current struggles. It is shaped by the choices you make today, especially the uncomfortable ones. This is your moment to step fully into your God-given potential, to live a life that inspires, not because it's easy, but because it's built on a foundation of unshakable faith, forged in the very fires you once sought to avoid. What if your story, your journey of embracing discomfort for divine growth, could be the very light someone else needs to see? What if your honest sharing could break through another person's paralysis? We believe in the power of shared stories, and we invite you to be a part of this unfolding narrative. If this message has ignited something within you, consider joining our community, where we share deeper insights and support each other on this journey. You can find more resources and connect with us directly through the link in the description, or by exploring our channel. Let's continue to build, to grow, and to shine together, transforming our struggles into testimonies of an unstoppable faith.